はいつでもキョロキョロよそ見をするのはやめてよ私が誰より一番
The answer is every episode. Every episode is the best episode of Urusei Yatsura. It's a great landmark anime that I would recommend to everyone, but it's kind of hard to do that when it's a sci-fi, supernatural, romantic school comedy that's collectively over 200 episodes, that's also episodic and hard to binge, that's also from the early 80s. As such, there are tons of really good standout episodes that I'm upset nobody will ever get to see. So, instead of a traditional why you should watch, I mean review, I'm compiling a collection of 50 Urusei Yatsura episodes to recommend to newcomers who might be interested in having a good time and have a half hour to kill. Now, for all you malhounds out there, and don't worry, I'm one of them, you're gonna have to live with not marking these episodes on your lists this one time. Just enjoy yourselves. Now, I won't be including the movies, I recommend all of them, and while I could and should include the OVAs in that 50, I think compiling it out of just the TV series makes more sense to me. Again, you don't need much of any context to enjoy these episodes, but I've compiled a list of introduction episodes which happen to fit neatly into a 2-core anime series, just in case you want to have a baseline for all these characters of the show. Here they are now. Alright, and here are the 50 episodes I've picked as the ones you can have the best possible time, but of course I encourage you to watch the whole show if you like what you see. You might enjoy some episodes I don't include here, even more than the ones I did. Real quick though first, I wanted to address some biases I had in choosing. There's a few episodes that act more as period pieces, recreating or in the style of classic Japanese folklore and literature, and I personally couldn't follow any of them very well, so I didn't include them here. I also had preference to episodes that developed the main cast over episodes that focus on minor characters, and I tried to avoid duplicate episodes. So while I love each and every episode that features Kitsune, I only included one on this list. Lastly, to keep the representation balanced across the entire series, since it exchanges directors, writers, and even animation studios over the 5-year run, I regimented it to 12 to 13 episodes for each season of the show. Oh, and I couldn't possibly rank this many episodes over each other, so these will be in chronological order. Though I will highlight the 5 episodes that are my personal favorites, including the first pick, episode 10.
わあ雪だっちゃ
やっとクリスマスイブらしくなってきたな。
Lum's stormtroopers set up a fake Christmas date for Ataru so that Lum will break up with him. This is the first time Ataru really seems to fall in love with Lum. It's also an excellent Megane episode. It's directed by Mamoru Oshii himself, and it's Christmas themed. It's a fan favorite for a reason. This is a two-parter where in the first half, Mendo uses an old camera to send Ataru to different dimensions, and the second half has Ataru having unnaturally good luck. This is a great early example of the show bending reality around, but I also really enjoyed the tennis match in the second half between Mendo and Ataru. Also, it's super funny to see Ataru get his comeuppance at the end of both of these shorts. Another two-parter, first a combination of strange food splits Ataru into a good half and a bad half, kind of like that one Rick and Morty episode. I really loved seeing which parts of himself were meant for Lum and which were meant for Shinobu. Kind of a neat twist on the love triangle. The second half has Ataru trapped in a dream sequence, and is notable as the first appearance of Mujaki, who is a one-off character that later has a bigger role to play in the second and most well-known film, Beautiful Dreamer.
待っとれよラム。
Ataru and Ten follow Lum back to her home planet where her father is throwing a matchmaking party for her. I love this one because it shows how far Ataru is willing to go for Lum, and it's also a rare look at the kind of world Lum comes from. There's a lot of cool space visuals and wacky standalone characters in this one too. Cute, wholesome, stylish school picnic! The gang deals with Kappa kingdoms and gets lost in a cave system. I think this is the first adventure with just Ataru, Lum, Mendo, and Shinobu, which is the best dynamic in the show. I call them the lovers. Mendo also reveals his infamous fear of the dark for the first time. What's not to love?
なんていう姿になってしまったの？
大丈夫です、娘さん。僕がついています。二人で力を合わせてあの花を咲かせようじゃありませんか。そして二人の間にも愛の花を咲かせましょう。
Simple plot this time. Ataru and Ten fight for the love of this flower shop girl. This had some standout animation, and out of all the Ten and Ataru rivalry episodes, this was pretty much my favorite. You also don't get very many episodes from this flower girl. She's pretty cute. Lum and Ataru go on their first date, and it's so cute! This is another Oshi episode, and another one with superb Lum Ataru content. They go to a pool, they go rollerblading, and they have a double date lunch. It's great. It was also refreshing to see the character Perm get his own screen time. He doesn't get a whole lot. Giant watermelon chase, and the gang chills on a riverboat. It was a good change of location. It's another great lovers episode featuring Sakura and Cherry, and there are some scenes that I would come close to describing as Iyashikei. This is a good episode to end your summers with.
なんだちゅうんじゃ。
バイバイ。
ベイベイ、ベイベイ。
Ataru gets in a fight with Lum during their 1-year anniversary, and she leaves. For what seems like for good. I love when the show explores Ataru and Lum's relationship, and this one is less comfy than it is dramatic and interesting. It's also directed well and looks great. It's one of the most beloved episodes in the show's entire run. It's a must-watch episode. Lum's alien friends are trying to plan a surprise party without Lum finding out. It's rare to have an episode dedicated to Lum's circle of friends like this, and they all bounce off each other great with the school characters. I'm just a sucker for Lum in Crisis. The payoff at the end is very satisfying. Also, good dancing. The school installs a new rule prohibiting students from eating out for lunch, which triggers an all-out war. This is a great premise. I love the war games that get involved. Also, other teachers besides Onsen and the principal get really rare screen time. So this was a very refreshing and fun episode.
そこ行くお前、お前だよ。名は何という？
諸星当たる。
我は諸星あたる。お主の行きたいところを知っているぞ。
Ataru finds a part-time job at a bathhouse for the supernatural. This one establishes a really good spooky, mysterious, yet whimsical atmosphere in the first half, and the second half delivers on a good premise with even funnier execution. Certainly one of the artsier episodes.
そしてグランプリ賞はミス雪の女王の熱いキッスをお送りいたします。
Lum gets Ataru to come with her on a ski trip, and he enters a ski contest where the prize is a kiss from the Snow Queen. I can't resist a snow-themed episode, and this had such an energy to it when the race gets going. While the twist at the end is pretty easy to see coming, that makes it all the more fun when Ataru doesn't expect it. It's such a blast.
あれなんだこりゃ。
This episode centers on love catch balls, which are balls that you look through and see your future love. Needless to say, this gets out of hand. There's a lot of episodes featuring some kind of Lum gadget, but this has to be the most engrossing and fun that I've seen. You get so many fun interactions, in particular between the principal female characters, and the cafe setting here is a real highlight. I loved it.
うちはなんと恐ろしいこと。こうなったらうちもグレてやるっちゃ。
OK! 今日はこれまでにしとこう。 We're making a movie!
There are 2 episodes like this that have the characters filming a movie, but this one stood out to me for being the more cinematic of the 2, as well as the most dense. So much seems to happen in the course of 20 minutes. I really enjoyed it for that.
あれパーマン何やってんだお前。ほれパーマン。
This is an Urusei Yatsura staple, a simple cabin in the woods scenario where each character gets picked off one by one. It's a scary good time.
「夕食はどうしたの？なんか取って食べてくれた？あなたいないの？当たる父さんは？」
Ataru's mom is involved in an accident that causes her nightmares. I really didn't see this episode coming. It's super different, focusing on Ataru's mom weaving in and out of reality. It's very cerebral and unique to the series. It really messed with my head. Reminded me of something Satoshi Kon would have written and directed, actually. If that sounds interesting to you, check it out. It's a summer Christmas party with a giant Christmas tree, and everyone's challenged to climb to the top. Anything centered on a competition has me instantly engaged, and it's got great moments with Mendo's sister Ryoko screwing him over. Oh, and it's Christmas themed? And how can you pass up on this matching outfit action? Come on now, check this one out. The lovers are attacked by sentient yams. This was a lot like And Then There Was None, only this has more of a B-movie horror kick. It's got some standout animation, and again, you can't go wrong with the dynamic of these four together.
先生俺やるぜどんなに苦しくてもどんなに辛くてもきっとやり抜くぜ俺は女になるんだ
Onsen has to turn Ryunosuke into a real woman. I think this is the only episode that pairs Ryunosuke with Onsen, and I don't know why, because they work great off each other. And I can't resist how good the My Fair Lady dress looks on her. I had a great time watching this one. It's a contest for Miss Tomobiki. This is literally the show debating who best girl is. And while that answer should be no contest, it's still super tongue-in-cheek and a blast to watch unfold. Ataru saves a snowman who turns into a girl and treats him to a date, only he's the only one that can see her. Very cerebral Ataru episode, particularly in the last third. Very out there premise, but it works. Again, I love episodes that challenge the themes of the show and explore character motivation. This really sticks in your mind for a while afterwards.
しゅうちゃんの玉手箱だそして見ろこの扉の裏をどうだ素晴らしい絵だろうが
よく見えないな。
こらこら何をするおいよお
Mendo and Ataru get locked inside Mendo's giant safe where they try to out-survive the other. This is actually the only episode of Urusei Yatsura that does not feature Lum once, but getting an entire episode dedicated to Ataru and Mendo's rivalry, especially with something so compelling as being trapped in a safe, was a real fun time. Ataru visits an old-fashioned bathhouse so he can peek in on the girls, but of course the other boys join in too. I really like how simple the premise and setting both are, and how that was able to carry a whole episode. It really shows off this show's range, capable of being these huge, dense, over-the-top episodes, as well as honed in and basic with strong execution. While the episode is centered around a pretty scummy act, I like that the show doesn't reward the characters nor the audience with what they want. I personally find that a great merit to the show in general. Sakura's childhood self mysteriously appears at the school. This is the best Sakura-focused episode for me. It explores her past really well. It's gorgeous to look at, and has a healthy dose of onsen too. Really enjoyed this one. Lum gets amnesia and is taken in by Mendo, which prompts Ataru to try and rescue her. This is a 2-episode arc, it's the only one as far as I can remember, and is basically Mamoru Oshii's swan song episodes. Megane is really badass here, and once again, it's something that challenges Lum and Ataru's relationship, this time involving Mendo. Lum hops between parallel universes trying to get back to her own. What a standout episode. The tone here seemed to be a bit of a nod to Beautiful Dreamer, because it came out around this time, and in my controversial opinion, I thought this episode alone ends up much stronger than that film. It really confronts Lum's attraction to Ataru and comes off so brutally honest. It was super cathartic and haunting. One of my favorites, if not my favorite episode, even if for just that one scene towards the end. The class plays rugby and can't seem to take their eyes or hands off Ryunosuke, while a rugby-sized spaceship tries to conquer Earth. Sometimes the show isn't afraid to lean back on basic goals and still pull off something memorable and engaging start to finish. A bit more on the pervy side, but doesn't take it too far, and the twist with the tiny ship was cheeky and clever. I couldn't resist adding it here. Ron goes out with Rei and gets an indirect kiss from him. Both Rei and Ron don't show up very often, and I always love when the show pushes the boundaries of its setting and shows us these crazy beautiful alien landscapes. Also, the love polygon between those two and Lum and Ataru is at its best here. Just the idea of the two tomboy characters teaming up to beat up bikers and rescue a kitten should already make you on board for this episode. But it doesn't hurt how good this episode looks and sounds, and how perfect their chemistry is. It's a must-watch. Ron gets Oyuki angry at her, and you wouldn't like Oyuki when she's angry. This is the only Ataru-free episode, and the chemistry of Lum's friends is something you just can't pass up. There's a few episodes like this, but I thought this one was the funniest with the most variety in scenarios, and the most engrossing. Ron misplaces a supernova fragment that could blow up the whole town. Talk about a high-stakes episode. I haven't loved as many episodes that focus on Kotatsu Neko, but while this one wasn't necessarily focused on him, this is arguably the best I've seen him integrated into the story of the episode. A space octopus forces the class into a talent show where if they fail, they disappear. There's a good deal of these episodes that are confined to their classroom, and I find this one to be the best for the way it balances gags with tension. Also, for Rakugo Shinju fans out there, the first third has some solid Rakugo in it, which is always cool and rare to see in other anime. And you know, this is good too. Ryoko gives Ataru a Mendo voodoo doll. Only he doesn't know it's for Mendo, but Mendo does. I just need to give props to how this opening scene is animated and directed, but the rest of the episode is exceptionally funny, and probably the most fabulous Ryoko feature.
なんだラム。
うちのこと心配してくれるの？
いや何ちょっと腕相撲を。
Lum promises a classmate that she can beat up a bully without using her powers. What follows is a Rocky-style showdown and one of my favorite episodes of the show. Since Lum doesn't normally have to walk, she isn't actually that strong, so it presents a really interesting challenge for her that you don't really see anywhere else. Drugs are bad. Okay, kids?
諸星、あとは頼んだぞ。あ、何のことだ？え？見たか、この村雨の切れ味を。あれ？諸星か。
The school greenhouse is burned down, leaving the students in charge of it to be fiercely protective of the tomatoes that survived. But the next day, Ten sinks the school into the ground, leaving the students trapped looking for food, and it turns into Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's really a bombastic premise, and there's a lot of thrills and tension on top of the laughs.
「北風が吹きすさび一年で一番寒い季節がやってくると心の中までがうつろで錆びついた音を奏で始めるのはなぜだろう」当たり前すぎる全てのことが急に取るに足らない些細なことに思われ何もかも投げ出したくなるような日々。
This is the rare time where I don't want to spoil much from this episode because I think the mystery is part of the charm. Basically, there's this girl that keeps appearing to Ataru. This was an unusually poised and poetic and subdued episode. It really highlights the show's versatility that's so hard to find in comedy shows like this. Quite exceptional.
何をわけのわからんことを。俺はこの人と結婚する運命に。ん？
Sakura eats a berry grown by Lum that's meant for her to fantasize about Ataru, so the three of them have to enter a dream realm together to stop Dream Ataru from stealing away Sakura. It's a seriously creative and strange episode. There are a lot of Dream State episodes, but this is probably the most eclectic and exciting. Also has a chivalrous Ataru and an abnormally high supply of postcard memories. Okay, so this is probably the hardest episode to explain. Ataru drinks Lum's eye drops, which causes everyone to hallucinate. Cloning, dimensional travel, jumping into chalkboards, it's trippy and unexplainable. I hardly understood anything that happened in it, but it was nothing short of astonishing and bizarre. This is anime weird. Ten uncovers half of a locket from when Lum and Ray were together. If the two halves are joined back together, their love gets rekindled. On top of being a good episode, the standout moment was seeing how Lum and Ray broke up. And especially if you've become attached to these characters, that moment was a series highlight. I do admit you could say that about a lot of these episodes, so I understand if many of you just want to watch from the start. At least I hope you can take this list as episodes to anticipate. Ghost Girl wants to date Atsuru because she admired him when she was alive, and it is the cutest shit. Please at me about it. This episode is directed so spectacularly. It's by no means a funny episode, but I think if you're one of those folks that hate Atsuru for being so lecherous and shitty, I think this is one of the best episodes to turn you around on him. Atsuru accidentally hits Lum with a rice cooker, and she forgets how to speak Japanese. There's a few episodes like this where Lum is put in some kind of trouble, and it challenges Atsuru's true affections for her. But what made this episode stand out in particular was putting Atsuru in a position to let him indulge in this woman hunting of his, and following it all the way through to its inevitable conclusion, which I thought was important for the character to go through. It's a super hot day, and Lum has magic ice to keep her and everyone else cool. Only there's a catch. If you get angry or stressed, the ice block smashes you in the head. And if you pent up the rage, the ice block just gets bigger and bigger. This is another really fun invention episode, only this time it takes place around the school, and it has some pretty hilarious twists towards the end.
Hey! Come on! Come on! Come on!
Lum buys a cupid plant that she tries to use against Atsuru, only it has a mind of its own. It's a pretty familiar premise, but it plays in ways you wouldn't anticipate, again having really fun stakes and tension, and it's even a little poignant towards the end. This is the ultimate episode featuring Ryunosuke and her father, where she has this big showdown with him to fight for her mother's bathing suit. The majority of this episode isn't as straightforward as the premise makes it sound, but just having that big, long-awaited showdown is still a major series highlight. The crappy weather has made Atsuru a bit tubby, and the gang decides to attend a yoga class, only it's taught by Cherry. It turns into a meditation game where they compete in a dream state to see whose dream is stronger. And for some reason I didn't write why I liked the fucking episode. Come on, guy. This episode has very little to do with yoga and everything to do with picking apart each character's brains, and how the other characters try to mess everything up. The episode doesn't get going until a third of the way through, but this has Ataru and Lum go on another date, this time dealing with fortunes. Of course, Ataru wants fortunes to be rid of Lum, and Lum wants fortunes to keep them together, which has mixed results. There's a really good wedding gag, and their reactions to each time they're dissatisfied with a fortune gets better every time it happens. Also, just having a chill date with the two leads is always a good time. Shinobu promises Ataru to go on a date with him if he finishes first on an exam, which he tries a number of schemes to achieve. This is a rare case where the show is structured more like extended vignettes instead of a narrative that builds and builds, and is a notably funny change of pace. Almost last, but holy shit, arguably my second all-time favorite episode. This is a Kitsune episode, who is a minor character that's this little fox in love with Shinobu. What makes this one the best for me was how straightforward the conflict is instead of being more on the abstract side of things, like episode 134, 158, and 174, which I also recommend if you enjoy this character. Kitsune learns of this folk tale of how a fox saves a girl from a photograph by grabbing an Oni's horns. So when he finds a photo of Shinobu, he tries to save her by trying to grab Lum's horns. Nearly every one of these episodes are super adorable, but this one just takes the cake for me and fills me with such good feelings. I think this episode got me to cry. Just move on to the last one. And finally is an episode where the gang has to save Lum from a jungle boy who's immune to electricity. I like the mystery they build around this jungle boy, and of course it has more Ataru being heroic, and of course I enjoyed that a lot. And that's the video, so I think I'll end it there. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you'd like to support content like this, you can become a patron like these fine folk who make this video possible, including Beanburst, Cam, Eardan, Jay, Lars Souffle, and Tengoon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back very soon.